All right, let's dive into a nearly 2,000-year-old case file from the Talmud. This is a genuine intellectual detective story. It all starts with a high-stakes ritual, a critical mistake, and a debate that has had scholars talking for generations. Let's get right into it. But first, let's bring this home. Think about it in your own life, in a lab or a kitchen or even a hospital. What do you do when a critical procedure just goes wrong? When two essential things get mixed up and there's no undo button. That is precisely the kind of problem our ancient sages were wrestling with, and their process for solving it is just absolutely fascinating.
So, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with the initial problem, then look at a theory that completely changes the game. We'll see what happens when new evidence pops up, raise the stakes with an even more complex case, and finally, we'll go on a hunt for the ultimate source of the law itself.
Okay, Part 1, a problem of mixed blood. Let's set the scene. We're in the ancient temple in Jerusalem, a place where these rituals had to be done with absolute precision.
So here's the scenario. A priest is holding a bowl, and inside is blood from two totally different kinds of sacrifices. Here's the problem. One of those sacrifices requires him to put blood on all four corners of the altar. The other one, just a single placement. But now it's all mixed together. What's he supposed to do? He can't unmix it. This is a serious procedural crisis. So two of the heaviest hitters of the era, Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yehoshua, they weigh in. Rabbi Eliezer comes up with a pretty practical solution. He says, look, just perform the bigger ritual. Put the mixed blood on the four corners. When you do that, you've automatically taken care of the one placement requirement. Simple, right? Problem solved? Well, not so fast. Rabbi Yehoshua objects. He says this simple fix actually breaks a major biblical law. And this right here is Rabbi Yehoshua's killer objection. He asks, hey, by putting the blood for the one placement offering on the altar 3 extra times, aren't you adding to the ritual? See, the Torah specifically forbids adding or subtracting from its commandments. So Rabbi Eliezer's pragmatic solution? Well, it might actually be a serious violation. This is the core of the whole initial debate. Now, for generations, everyone just assumed the debate was about what we just laid out. But then a much later sage named Rava comes along and suggests that maybe, just maybe, everyone had been misunderstanding the original case file the entire time.
Rava proposes this radical rereading of the whole situation. He says, what if the argument wasn't about blood that was physically mixed in one single bowl? What if, instead, it was about 2 separate cups that got mixed up, and now the priest just doesn't know which cup is which?
This shows the distinction Rava is making perfectly. On the left, you have balul, a real physical mixture, but on the right, you have kosut, which means cups. This isn't a problem of a physical blend, it's a problem of uncertainty, of not knowing which is which, and reframing it this way changes the entire legal dynamic.
So how does this solve Rabbi Yehoshua's big objection? This is where it gets really clever. According to Rava, Rabbi Eliezer's logic is based on this powerful legal idea: you view the extra, improperly placed blood as if it were water. So when the priest grabs one of the unknown cups and puts it on the four corners, those 3 extra placements are legally considered meaningless. It's like he's just splashing water on the altar. It has 0 ritual significance, so it doesn't violate the do not add rule. It's a really elegant solution.
Okay, so it really seems like Rava cracked the case, right? His theory is neat, it's tidy, but in the world of the Talmud, the investigation is never really over. What happens when a new piece of evidence turns up that seems to contradict your perfect theory?
So, before we can look at this new evidence, we gotta know what a Baraita is. Think of the Mishnah as the main, official collection of laws from that time. A Baraita is kind of like a deleted scene. It's a teaching from the exact same period, but it just wasn't included in the final cut. Still, it's considered ancient and super authoritative.
And this Baraita seems to just blow Rava's whole theory out of the water. It says, flat out, that Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis did argue about a case of balul, actually mixed blood. In this version, blood from a valid sacrifice got mixed with blood from an invalid one, and Rabbi Eliezer still said to use it. This is a direct contradiction of Rava's idea that their fight was only about mixed-up cups.
So, what now? How do you resolve a flat-out contradiction like this? Well, the Talmud comes to a fascinating conclusion. It says there wasn't just one single version of the original debate. Instead, there were different academic traditions. Rava was working with one tradition, from his school, that said the debate was only about cups.
Meanwhile, Rabbi Yehuda, who taught that Breita, was preserving a different but equally valid tradition that said the debate was about both mixed blood and mixed cups. Okay, hold on, because the puzzle is about to get even more complex. We're about to shift from a question of how many placements to where on the altar those placements happen. We're getting into the actual geography of the altar itself.
Now, to get this next part, you really have to picture the altar. There was this red line, the Chut HaSikra, that went all the way around the middle of it. Some sacrifices, like a sin offering, needed their blood placed above that line. Others, like a burnt offering, had to be placed below it. And this wasn't just for looks, it was a critical legal boundary.
So what happens if blood that has to go above the line gets mixed with blood that has to go below? You guessed it, the debate starts all over again. Rabbi Eliezer, ever the consistent one, says to use his viewed as water idea. You perform the tougher placement above the line, and you just consider the other blood to be inert. But the rabbis, they strongly disagree. For them, this mixture is a fatal error. The whole batch is ruined and has to be poured down the drain. The stakes are suddenly much, much higher.
And just when you think there's no way it could get more specific, it does. The next generation of sages, Abaye and Rav Yosef, they drill down even further. Abaye tries to narrow the argument, saying it only applies to the main blood placements. The leftover blood from the sin offering, he says, also gets poured at the bottom of the altar, so if that got mixed, no big deal. But Rav Yosef objects. He points out that the remainder goes on the altar's base, which is a totally different spot from where the burnt offering's blood goes. I mean, the level of precision is just incredible.
Now, all of these incredibly detailed arguments are built on one fundamental idea, that one type of holy blood doesn't just cancel out another. And that brings us to our final and maybe most important question. Where does this whole legal principle even come from? It's time to hunt for the source.
So let's frame the question really clearly. The whole viewed as water theory completely depends on the idea that holiness can exist in a mixture without getting canceled out. But where in the Bible does it say that? What is the textual proof for this entire way of thinking?
Well, one possible source comes from the book of Numbers. It's talking about firstborn offerings, and the verse says, "They are holy." The sages really zoom in on that plural word, they. I mean, why not just say it is holy? They argue that this little detail teaches us that even when mixed with other things, these offerings keep their own distinct holiness. They remain a they.
But then there's another candidate for the source, this one from Leviticus. This verse describes the Yom Kippur ritual, where the high priest takes from the blood of the bull and of the blood of the goat. The language here suggests that even when they're physically mixed in one bowl, the law still sees them as two separate things, the bull's blood and the goat's blood.
So which one is it? The ultimate answer from the Talmud is that the earliest sages, the Tanaim, actually argued about this exact thing. And what's so amazing is that they all agreed on the law itself, that holy things don't nullify each other. Their entire dispute was just about which specific word in the Torah is the final anchor for the idea. The legal principle was solid, the textual proof was up for debate.
And this brings us to our final thought. We've just gone through this incredible maze of practical problems and conflicting traditions and unbelievably detailed legal arguments, and it all comes back to a debate over the meaning of a single word in a sacred text. So it leaves us with this question to think about. What does it mean for an entire intellectual and spiritual system to believe that ultimate truth, the very bedrock of law, can be found in the careful interpretation of just one single word?